You are now tuned in to the Gifted Gab.
We back, another episode.
We here.
We here. Love
Special guest today.
Topboy. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's good, man. It's good, man. How's everything?
It's been good, considering this whole pandemic situation that everyone's dealing with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been good. I've been real busy the last like 2.5 months, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
But just trying to manage everything as best I can.
Yeah, it's tough, man. This COVID thing is it's affected everything, right?
Oh, big time.
I just recently seen that the gym closures were a thing. Yeah.
I don't know about the big box gyms, but it's weird. They received a lot of backlash when they decided to close down gyms, and then what happened is, during this lockdown, the government released a report that showed there's like a bunch of different pie charts for each city, and it showed how or like what industries contributed to COVID outbreaks. And gyms across the board were like 2%. Because right now, gyms are like one of the most controlled places you can go.
100%.
Yeah, you got to sign up. They sanitize everything.
Yeah.
As soon as you're done working out on something, man's there like a NASCAR driver. Just wipes it down. He's gone.
Yeah. Even like general gym, just like, what's the word? Forgot, brain fart. If you go to the gym, you use a piece of equipment, you wipe it down yourself anyway.
Yeah.
That's just
for the majority. Like most people, I've seen sometimes where people, they're doing their bench press and whatnot and leave. That happens, but for the majority, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, So, I mean, I feel like gyms. I don't know what it was like out here. If you had to wear masks in the gyms, or you did, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think it's that serious.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense because you're saying that only 2% of
so in Toronto specifically, it was less than 4% was contributed. The problem is they're trying to argue that because we're in hotspot areas, they want to limit things as much as they can. But you got people who are making decisions who haven't like been in the gym or like seen the gym in a minute, right? Like that's as much as I can say.
Yeah.
Doug Ford is easy 300 pounds. He's never set foot in a gym.
It's crazy because we were talking about this the other day about how the gym and mental health are so intertwined, and how by taking away that it's really affecting people. So obviously they're trying to protect their citizens and keeping them safe and sanitary, but at the same time, that mental health aspect, which we literally just finished talking about, is so undervalued, underrated, and clearly that's shown by our government.
Yeah, it's big. Like I'm a big advocate of mental health because, ironically, like right before COVID initially hit in March, I had a photo exhibit in Toronto that was all about mental health within the Black community, specifically with Black men. Right, so that's always at the forefront of my mind. But going into winter, you got seasonal depression, which is like a real thing.
Yeah,
I know it's late now, but it was dark from like 4 p.m.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So people are already agitated. When one of the best ways to make yourself physically fit or physically healthy is just going to the gym, right? Most people go to the gym. Like, honestly, most people go to the gym just for a release mentally.
Yeah.
They got some stuff going on in the day.
It's therapeutic, man.
For sure.
Very.
It's really therapeutic.
Very. So with everything going on in the world right now, I'm just talking about Toronto specifically, or Ontario. It's dark by 3 p.m. Time goes back. I'm just pushing the time back. Yeah. It goes back 3 p.m. It's dark. We can't go out anywhere. We can't do none of these things. You can't work out. You can't stay fit. People are going to be miserable, bro. Like, if
I'd lose it. I would lose it. Like,
yeah, people are going to be miserable for sure.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the effects you're seeing already, and I'm kind of just worrisome about how we're going to move forward as a society. Like, even after this COVID thing is all done, how are we going to respond to like the new norms and whatnot? Like, it's tricky, This guy's laughing. I feel like there obviously different parts of Canada handle it differently, right? Like, you're in Edmonton. I think like you guys are a little bit more freer out there. I don't know. Like, is there less restrictions? Like,
I don't know, man. Like, for governments, it's tough because it's like some governments are more concerned with the economy, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Like, there's drawbacks to keeping people inside, like a lot of drawbacks. You know, not forget about like businesses and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You know, you keep people at home. You know, the mental health aspect. You know, abuse, divorce, a lot of things go up because people are staying home. You know, and obviously, with in normal circumstances, these things don't happen. People go to work, people go places, people, you know, there's a lot of this escapism, but it's not really escapism. So now it's like you close everything down. You're stuck at home with whoever it is, you know, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your kids, whatever. And life is just, it's never like that. You know, it's never at that point.
Yeah.
So now everything is this, it's an extreme to stay home for that amount of time.
Extreme sport, bro.
That's an extreme.
XXX, like,
You know what I mean?
For real.
So
yeah.
it's like I think that's what the hesitation, and it's like when you opened, it was like there wasn't really any strategy behind opening. You know, schools just went back to regular.
Yeah.
Schools were like the biggest
And schools were
contributors
the
on the
biggest,
podcast. Yeah.
You know, there was no plan for that. Gyms, they held it down. You know, gyms have always been a really controlled environment, like you were saying. You know what I'm saying? So I think they kind of act like they don't know, like how to approach, you know, opening, and then it's like we want to close things again. It's like it's too reactionary.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's calculated.
It's planned.
It's tough because like nobody knows anything about this virus. But you know, somebody's got to step up and say, "Yo, okay, we're gonna look at the data." You know, like you were saying, there's data now. Okay, what makes sense to close? What doesn't make sense to close? Not just closing everything at once. Restaurants, like some people can eat at home. You know what I'm saying? If you can order food on the go, order food on the go. I think dining in patios and shit like that, I think it's
a little bit unnecessary.
It's unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? Gyms should stay open. You know, schools, you got to say, okay, hey, we got to look at alternatives to schooling. Because I feel like school was already operating on the fringes.
Yeah,
up until that
Zoom
point.
University is tough, bro. It's tough.
I could not imagine.
I'm just so demotivated, bro. Like, it's like, damn, I got a lecture today, then I got it. Like, I hear my
Can't even
prof-
cheat.
Bro, my
Can't
prof,
even cheat.
bro, like my prof, like you hear everything. Like my prof has a cat when she's doing her lectures. There'll be times that cat's purring so loud I can't even hear what the prof's saying, bro. And I'm like, I'm paying for this, bro.
And that's the worst part.
That's
the worst part.
I'm paying
for this. Yeah.
Like a scholarship is going towards this. My time and money is going towards this. What am I doing with it? I didn't hear to listen to your cat purr. I didn't sign up for this.
I think that's the worst part about all this is like school was just like, we're sending everything online. They didn't cut any of the tuition costs.
None, yeah.
They didn't say, okay, we're gonna, because like I've taken online classes. Online classes are not Zoom classes.
Nah.
Yo, 100% facts.
Yeah. Online classes are not Zoom classes. Online classes are like, here's like this cohort you work with. You get a couple of discussions, assignments and stuff. You work with these people. You guys organize it. Here's a couple books you got to read. There's no lecture. There might be a 1-2 video you got to watch.
Yeah.
Some reading you got to do. There isn't, it's specifically, they call it collaborative learning. You know what I'm saying? It's really progressive. And I'm like, yo, this is one of my favorite classes I took because it's like, it's not that I have to tap in and go on Zoom and, you know, like staring at a computer for 3 hours. It doesn't really make sense. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, costs are still the same. Tuition still costing you six grand. You know what I'm saying? 7 grand, whatever it is. And there was no compromise or no adjustments, and like universities did not adapt in this time.
I think.
You can go.
Well, I think that speaks to what you're saying is like relevant to everything across the board. You know, so the problem here's the thing, right? Like you said, we don't know enough about this virus to even have a cure for how to we know how to mitigate it, but not how to fully get rid of the whole situation. Okay, cool. In an ideal world, if they tell me, look, we have to close down everything because this virus is serious, we don't know enough about it, I'm fine with that. The problem is, what do you guys do as a government? What do you do in order to help people at that point? Right? So when a university says we're going to move everything online, it's like, okay, cool. can my tuition change though?
Yeah.
Because I'm not paying, like, that tuition was meant for me to be able to actually go to the school, to like participate in the experience of going to college, university. That's part of the reason you pay to go.
Yeah.
Right. So now I don't have that aspect of it. I shouldn't be paying as much. A lot of the issues that restaurant owners and gym owners and all these industries were having was like, okay, it's not like we don't get that this virus is serious, but if you're going to close us down for 28 days, however many months, you do still realize that bills still have to get paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I didn't realize until COVID how, like, fringe everyone was operating.
Oof.
All these businesses were
society,
operating.
yeah.
Our
Everybody.
society.
Everybody.
Like on average, most people are working paycheck to paycheck, right? And that's no different for a lot of businesses because the rent is crazy for some of the places they have to pay. So when the government came out and said, yo, here's a small business loan for everyone so that we can help subsidize some of the costs, what general public didn't realize was that it was still up to the landlord of the place whether or not they would agree to take the small business loan. So if you're just a small business but you're renting out this space and your landlord says, "No, I'm not signing up for that," you got to come up with the money for that that month.
The secret, right?
Yeah.
The secret. Yeah.
And I saw it happen. I saw places. Every week in Toronto, I see somewhere new close, and then I find out it's because their rent is so high. You can't ask people to pay 20 racks.
Yeah.
You can't ask people to just pay 20 racks a month. That's you need to accumulate that money.
And there's some places in the Eaton Center, like a little small ass booth that costs like 13 grand a month.
Modest,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's not even like 13 grand a month. Is like your first like 29 days of the month. You're just trying to make your rent.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And like how much, like, you look at businesses, like how much do you have to sell just to make your overhead? The best businesses that survive are the ones that they have some sort of competitive advantage. Maybe it's like low overhead, or maybe they don't pay for this. In Toronto, it's tough to cut it, you know. And then this type of shit happens. It's like, okay, there's money, but then it's like me getting access to that money is in the hands of the landlord. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I posted a video about this exact topic because I work in the fitness industry as kind of like my side hustle. But by nature, I'm a videographer, filmmaker, right? That's where I make most of my money. But most of my fulfillment comes from fitness because of the people I get to see, like clients I get to meet, all this type of stuff. And when you talk about group fitness, right? People that go to spin studios or those boxing gyms or anywhere like that. Most of those people go there for two reasons. One, because they actually want to work out, and two, because it's a social thing. These are people who work 9 to 5s. They don't see anyone during the day. They're like, oh, let me go to the gym and meet like-minded people. That's really what it's about. Group fitness does not survive, or it can't. The very model of it can't survive without a lot of people going to the classes.
Yeah.
Because there's always like promos, buy 2 classes, you get one free.
It's based on volume.
Yeah. Based on volume. So when the government says, all right, we're going to reduce the numbers by half, they're like, all right, that hurts our bottom line, but whatever, we'll rock with it. And then when the government says we're going to do 10 people, you're basically saying you guys can be open, but you're like not really going to survive.
It completely eradicates the experience for everyone. And I think that applies to any business because like the numbers are going down. So whether you're going to a restaurant or whether you're in school or whether you're at any type of establishment, that experience gets eradicated. And I think it completely disincentivizes people from even going in the first place. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a tough goal. Like if I'm going to go to a restaurant, like me and him, we used to go to Cactus Club sometimes, right?
All the time.
Shout out. Actually,
nah, there's no shout outs. There's no shout outs.
Shout outs. Yeah.
Y'all lost that.
Yeah.
But we'd go for that social enjoyment.
Yeah.
So sometimes meet other people, to see people that we haven't seen in a while, and it's like you take that away and bring it to 10 people. We're not going there no more. You know what I'm saying?
Think about all the times you go out and you get somewhere and it's empty. Walking, you're like, I'm
go
somewhere else.
Let's go. You want to slide over to
let's go somewhere else.
Poppy,
and now that's just the new norm. Like, come on, let's be honest. It's not the wave.
A lot of the norms, I feel like the new norms will be, cutting back costs. Whether it's business, whether it's individuals, home life, whatever. I think the new thing now is cutting back costs because now we've seen that what COVID has done is shown us, okay, what really matters to us? What do we really value? What do we really hold dearest to us? You know, so if it was like, you know, you had all these material things, it's like, okay, you're not going out. You know, there's no places to go. You can't travel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So do you really need all these things? You know, you might have a crib and be, you know, asset rich, cash poor. So it's like, okay, what other costs can I cut back on and shit like that? So I think that's another thing that's been thrown at the forefront that hasn't really been talked about, is like, you know, do we need all the shit that we have?
I think it's also important not to discount the value in these things. Like you're saying, obviously we want to value, and if like COVID forces us to value certain products and what really matters to us. But at the same time, like I know people that are still doing retail therapy. I know still people that are still booking trips. I know people that are still managing to do the same, to have some semblance of normalcy from pre-COVID. And I think like in a sense, it keeps them sane.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I went shopping. I got like myself a hoodie and a couple joggers the other day. I'm like, yo, this is normal again. Like it feels good, but
temporary though.
it's temporary. Yeah, 100%. It's
Very
temporary.
temporary.
But I think getting those like glimpses of normalcy is key to, in a sense, staying sane throughout this time period.
I agree with that. I think, to be honest, I think the biggest thing is, I think there's going to be some apprehensiveness for people to travel at some point. Like people are going to be worried about traveling.
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, one of the things I've been thinking about is like, I wish I traveled more. You know, like I traveled, but it's like, dude, this summer I was supposed to go to Japan.
Damn.
Right? Japan's like #1 on my bucket list.
Yeah.
No one there looks like me, but I want to go anyway. Like I really want to go.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I've heard it's a nice place.
yeah, I've never heard a bad experience from it. But but the point is,
Oh, fuck.
Crazy.
I'm trying to go.
Moving.
Trying to go.
You been too? Shit.
Oh yeah, you did.
You're
Crazy.
a trash Fred, bro.
Yeah.
Shit, don't we talk about
better,
Japan,
bro.
man? I'm saying, like,
Shit, dog.
damn, bro.
So I'm trying to go out there, and it's like, you know, COVID hits, life changes, whatever. You just kind of adapt. But I think a lot of people are in this weird space where it's like, okay, I know that tomorrow if I wanted to go to Mexico, I could, because I've seen people do it, you know, and doing rapid testing at the airport, all that type of stuff. But the problem is, I don't know how long it's gonna be before I can actually say I want to go to Europe. I want to go to somewhere in Asia. You know what I mean? Like now I have to really start thinking about when those things are actually feasible, not just for me traveling wise, but also my life back here. You know, biggest thing that I think a lot of people don't think about when it comes to COVID is, yes, I actually take the virus very seriously, right? We already know that depending on how young you are and like how fit you are, the death rates are lower than it is for people who are much older. That being said, what's more detrimental for young people is the fact that if you get COVID, you can't work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's actually the most detrimental thing, because most people our age are working paycheck to paycheck. There's no such thing as COVID pay.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Like you can't get COVID and then your employer is going to say, I'm going to pay you for these 14 days.
I got you. Don't worry.
That's not a thing. So getting COVID is actually like very detrimental for young people, right? If you're still working. That's the problem. Like I'm thinking, oh, okay, if I travel now, do I have to account for an extra 2 weeks of quarantining? Like, how does that work?
You do.
There you go. You do.
Yeah,
And if you don't work,
do.
yeah, you do. Like if you don't, and if you
That's
don't,
crazy.
if you don't work in
That's
a,
all I'm gonna say, bro.
Yeah.
You do. Like,
and if you don't work in an industry where, let's say you're not a 9 to 5 where you were office job, now you're working from home. If you don't work in that type of industry,
yeah.
how does that work?
Do you think there's more flexibility among industries that are self-employed, like you work for yourself? Like, I know you being a videographer, you're often decide like how things are ran, right? So, I mean, say for instance, you go to Japan, you come back, and you kind of let people know that, yeah, I've been there, and whatnot. Do you think that would affect your business model and how much opportunity you'd get from certain clients? Because they're like, oh, okay, no, you quarantine a bit, you know what I mean? Like,
Is there even transparency with that
like,
shit,
is
though?
it-
Like, that's what.
would you?
So I definitely think that there's, I don't think there's total transparency all the time. I know that because of how I move on social media, First off, there's no way I'm going to Japan and not posting that I'm in Japan. Let's be honest. Like, you're gonna open up Instagram and see me in Shibuya or something like that. Like, that's what you're gonna see me. So when I come back, like, people are gonna know. Probably, in all honesty, like, yeah, I'd have to abide by the 2 weeks. That probably affects me a little bit. I find a way to pivot. In my head, I've been at this stage where I'm thinking, listen, if I travel, why can't I come back and just get tested? You know, like, why can't I get tested to verify, like, what's good?
But
like,
you can.
Don't they still make you quarantine 2 weeks though? It's weird.
Apparently they do.
it.
Because, like, you don't know, like, when the incubation period is, right? You don't know.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not one that's trying to break rules and say you shouldn't follow these things. But I know there's people that's breaking it. I think when you're self-employed, it's some people rolling the dice. Like, I don't know what to say.
I think you have to roll the dice a little bit.
Yeah.
Being self-employed, it's like you gotta.
Yeah.
Hustlers gotta make decisions, man. Like
Yeah.
you gotta choose. Like, shit, where am I gonna go and make this happen, or am I gonna lose this bag here? Like, that's just a part of. I think that's just a part of that lifestyle. And you know, when are we gonna look at COVID and say this virus is way too smart? like way too smart.
Yeah.
It's ahead of it. Everything we do is like one step ahead of us. Like,
Yo, have you watched that new documentary, Totally Under Control?
the Donald Trump one.
Holy
Oh my
smokes.
God.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I seen it.
Okay, so
There it is, bro.
so it's on Amazon Prime. Most people got Amazon, so they probably can watch this.
Damn, is it on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
I went and I rented it off Apple TV like an
Oh
idiot.
yeah, okay. So here's the thing: the whole documentary was filmed in the last year, like in the last 6 to 8 months. Most documentaries that you watch, like when you see those documentaries on Netflix about murder mysteries and stuff like that, it's all kind of conjecture. Like, you know, they're talking about facts, but they're not talking to the people that were in the room sometimes when these incidents happened. With this documentary, they're talking to people who
Directly
were there. Like the people that you saw who were talking to the government, like on C-SPAN, all this type of stuff, who on the policymakers, all this stuff.
all the experts and everything, like the
That's
actual like
crazy.
firsthand.
That's crazy.
So what makes this doc crazy is it's a timeline from January. I think they only go
Before
to
January.
yeah, it's like December till I think April is as far as they went.
Yeah.
But what they did was they compared the United States response to COVID to South Korea, and they just paralleled how both governments dealt with it. And honestly, God, you watch it, you'll be frustrated because
What were some of like the major differences?
so you like,
Bro,
yeah,
I think that the biggest takeaway is that like Trump had all the information. He had all the experts.
He had people
all the
telling him.
protocols. He had everything. He had all the tools, but he just blatantly disregarded. I don't think he
didn't
opened.
dis-
Yeah,
it wasn't disregard. Like he fully said, like he basically looked at them. Can I curse or no?
Yeah.
He basically looked at them and said, "Fuck you." like I'm gonna do. I hear you, but I'm gonna ignore what you're saying, because when you see the comparisons, basically the problem is when, how do I explain this? It would be like me telling a basketball, like I gotta run a basketball camp, right? I got Carmelo Anthony in the room with me, right? Obviously, you think I defer to him to give me some knowledge. And I'm like, nah, I'm gonna go to the cafeteria lady to like give me the information that I need for this.
Bro.
That's an extreme example, but that's really what it was. So he had all the experts. He had people on his team who basically said, who were following this, right? Because the CDC in the States, I didn't realize there's a CDC in every country. And they all talk.
Really?
Yeah, they all talk. They all, because when one country sees something, they're like, hey,
There's correspondence.
they're like, we're going to let everyone else
sense.
know.
That makes sense,
So
yeah.
back in last year, these people are saying, yo, there's like this weird virus thing going around. And men's in the States were basically saying, yo, like this is, no, the people who are on board, they're like, oh, this is serious. Like, this is what we should do. And we're not stupid. Like, we're in the 20th century. We've seen pandemics before. So you just come up with plans for what you do when a pandemic hits. They had all of that stuff. And Trump was just like, no, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to make a committee that's going to deal with COVID. But we're going to have basically no doctors on there. And no one that works in this field. We're going to have all lawyers. It sounds like I'm making this up.
Crazy.
But that's actually what it is. We're going to have all lawyers.
Yeah.
We're going to have all lawyers. So basically, the politicians got involved in public health. South Korea looked at it and said,
we're going to take a step back.
Yeah.
Scientists, go ahead.
Because literally after they had a pandemic a few years ago, people forget Obama went through like 4 pandemics. It was like H1N1, Zika, Ebola, and one more thing. There was a lot he went through. Right? And at the time, he was criticized for basically
his reaction
speed to it, but he let the scientists take over. He's like, I'm not making decisions. What do I know? I'll let the scientists deal with it. South Korea, they had a similar incident. Like, people were upset when H1N1 happened. So they literally signed a bill that said government does not get involved. Like, right away. All we do is give you guys the money to deal with it. So first thing Korea did was just test everyone. Testing everyone, and they're so smart. They're like,
it took like it didn't take a long time for them to test everyone.
Did not,
because it makes sense. Like,
makes sense.
Why not?
And they're like, one of the things they booked, which I never thought about. They're like, we used to have people come into these like facilities to get tested. You know, they would, we put the cotton swab up their nose or they cough, and we're like, we can't run these tests indoors because when you cough now, it's just in the air. So they did drive-through stuff, which I'm looking at like, that makes a lot of sense.
That's what happens when you get scientists running the show.
Like, that's what happens. So I'd highly recommend watching it.
It's a really good.
I'll take a look at that.
It'll annoy you, but definitely watch it.
Yeah. Billions and billions.
I was gonna say, yo, I wanna touch upon that point because considering Trump's background, very business minded, he's very business savvy. He's thinking money first.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, when you're put in a position of power, you're obviously obligated to cater to the people, right? So in a sense, Trump's probably thinking, okay, this isn't that serious. He's taking it lightly. This is going to cost me a lot of money if I put this whole place on lockdown. It's going to cost me billions and billions. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't justify why he reacted the way he reacted, but it's like, damn, bro. At what point do you take the advice from these scientists? Because you could put the onus on them now. Because he's like, yo, this is my show. This is my spotlight. No, you're not. Everything's on me now. Like, at what point is it like, okay, let me start listening. You guys come here.
He really fumbled the bag on this one because
he definitely fumbled.
Because they talked about the you remember during the summer when there was all this outrage about a lack of PPE equipment, people couldn't get face masks, all this type of stuff. They talked about it in the dog. Like, that's crazy. America used to have, I think, like 3 of the largest manufacturers in the world who would make the PPE equipment. And then when Trump was in presidency, he basically outsourced them to China. He's like, all these can go to China. When we need them, we can just buy them at a cheaper rate. Yeah. But then the pandemic hit. No one in the States could get this stuff. So what happened? They had to try buy it back from China. But China's like, yo, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're giving them out to our people here. And then it created a bigger problem. There's a lot of internal fighting.
It's amazing how scarcity has been so like ramped up during this time period. Like a good example is toilet paper. What are you doing here, bro?
Yo, COVID doesn't make you shit. I don't understand. Let's be real. Like, when COVID first hit and I saw men's running to the store to grab all this toilet paper, I'm like, has it been confirmed that it makes you do this yet?
The first thing people went to get was toilet paper.
Out of any good. Out of any good.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you expect is going to be happening here? What do you expect?
I've lost a lot of faith in humanity these last few months.
I saw this and I was like, all these people are the weakest links.
100%.
What about the anti-maskers? This is the funniest one to me.
The rally in Toronto. Yeah, it was also a very bright crowd. You know what I mean? It was a very bright crowd, if you know what I mean.
Yo, that's crazy. Yo, that's facts.
I was looking in the crowd like, where's Waldo for like man's?
I think I said one still. I think I
was trying to find the one man them in there. I was like, he's hiding. He's hiding.
That's foul.
I'm not shocked, not surprised.
Well, why do you think that is though?
Listen,
at the tennis,
you go.
Why do you ask me? I think it's a little Me Too brewing over here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like with COVID happening, the struggle became, everybody was stripped away from everything. like race relations came to the forefront.
Yeah.
You know, they were out here fighting for, you know, I think it's good that, you know, people woke up and said, yo, we're tired of this shit. A group of some people saw it.
God, this is my chance. Like,
Say, you know what?
Come in, Birdman hand rub.
Enough's enough. We're oppressed too. All right,
Facts,
we're also oppressed. We have rights. All right, a couple of Karens, a couple of roid heads.
Like, shut the fuck up and wear your mask, bro.
Yo,
Like,
it's basic.
It's not that serious. You know what it is? I think it highlighted the difference in mentalities of people across the world. You know what I mean? Like, if we look at Asian countries, specifically China, right? They got a government in place right now that's moving a little shaky. They've been this way.
They don't play though.
They don't play. So it's like when they tell their people, yo, do this, most of the time they do it. There's protests happening right now because of the ongoing unrest with the government, but that's how it just works. When people say wear a mask because there's too much pollution in China, everyone just does it. In the States, and even to a certain degree here, imagine they did what they did in South Korea here that first month, where literally they said, we're shutting down everything. You're not doing anything for the next month till we get this on hand. You're going to have people who are going to look at you and say, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to Trinity Bellwoods and do what I need to do.
Do my thing. Yeah, that was crazy.
Because I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I went by on my bike and I like posted it. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? It's a bunch of people that it's more me before we.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because when you bring up a country, we talked about this on the last episode, man. This is so convenient. So a country like China, who's primarily like a socialist political country, it's interesting to see how they react to things, because it's like, okay, it's not just me I'm thinking about, it's everyone. You know, we're all in this together. It's kind of like a family type mindset. Whereas you compare that to the States, it's like there's more individualism going on. There's more just me I got to think about, maybe me and my close ones around me. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do what's best for me, not what's best for society. And a disease like COVID, you need to focus on everything. You can't focus on just yourself, because if everyone thought like that, we're going to be in the same place that we started in, right?
Yeah.
And I think the anti-maskers are a good example of just how that individualism thinks. You know what I'm saying?
I can't, like, stupidity has no limits.
If it really doesn't.
Like, no limits.
It's crazy to me. Like, no one likes wearing a mask.
Nah, man.
You know, if we lived in a place that was polluted all the time, I wouldn't even question it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what else people don't like? People don't like speed limits, but we still abide by them. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things are put in place.
Wait, say that again?
Speed limits.
What was the second part you said?
We abide by them.
That we do abide by them?
Yeah.
You've never been to Brampton, clearly.
Brampton, listen, driving in Toronto is stressful. Right.
Yo, doesn't Brampton have like the worst insurance rates in Canada?
Oh, I heard, yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah,
I heard it was the world that was.
Yeah, it's Brampton and then like Richmond, BC. Point is like, yeah, these things are in place to make things go smoother. Like in the doc too, they talked about, like, it's not the first time we see the pandemic, right? I don't know what the world's population was at the time, but they talked about the Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they said 1/3 of the world's population was inflicted with this flu, right? What we know about the flu today is, like, listen, I get a cold, I can go to Shoppers Drug Mart, pick something up, that'll help me fix it real quick. The problem with COVID is, the problem with people saying, look, it doesn't kill as many people as the flu does every year. The problem is we actually don't have anything yet to, like, for me to take to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how this thing is going to mutate and change as time goes on.
Smart ass virus.
Right? So basically what the people back then did, literally the world's government was just like, wear a mask. That's it. There's literal photos, like black and white photos of these old white.
Those beak.
Not the beak ones. There was the beak ones, but literally people just wearing cloth masks because they're like, hey, if you don't cough and sneeze in people, virus ain't really it's gonna mitigate it. So we're employing the same thing. It's not that serious. Yeah. I don't like wearing a mask, but if I go to a grocery store, I put it on and then I shop and I take it off when I leave. It's
very simple.
It's not hard.
It's not that hard. Sometimes I forget the mask, you know. you try to figure out a way because
Yeah.
you're mindful.
One
You're
of those. One of those. Like, oh, shit.
You're mindful. You're not trying to, be that guy in there without a mask. I have yet to see somebody walk into a store I'm shopping at and make a big deal about wearing a mask. Because I'll turn up and knock somebody the fuck out. Like, you've seen a couple?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
I just don't understand that. The outrage, you know what I mean? Like, it's
I'm like, please, come on, bro. Don't.
that's the same as white
talk
supremacists talking about infringing on their First Amendment rights or whatever, like freedom of speech and like.
It's like, why is oppression so crazy, bro? Why is oppression cool?
It's
Why
not.
is it so crazy?
It
doesn't make sense.
But this is what's crazy to me though. Is like when people say these things, like a part of me wants to literally smack them in the mouth because I'm just like.
Sometimes you have to.
I'm like, do you not realize how disrespectful it is what you're saying? When you look at me and say we're being oppressed, I'm like, hold on, bro. Come on, like you actually don't know what being oppressed is like. So for you to say wearing a cloth mask for 15, 20 minutes out of your day, like it's not that serious.
You can't suppress a colonizer. So I mean,
it's a sense of selfishness that goes on too as well, and that goes back to what I was saying before. That individualistic mindset is so prevalent among anti-maskers. I'll say.
I blame the algorithms. Like people caught up in the YouTube rabbit holes and like all that shit.
Conspiracies
And
shit like that.
conspiracies are fun to talk about, but don't come to me after watching like 5 YouTube videos, feeling like you know everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you want to argue something, I need facts. Not some guy, not some YouTube channel that you stumbled upon.
In his mom's basement.
Recommended for you. You know? You know what I'm saying? That recommended for you gets a lot of niggas. You know?
It does.
It gets a lot of. It's got me a few times. I won't lie, but you know what I mean?
Had me in the first half, you know? Like, first half. But
Big facts, man.
You know? But it's like, where we're getting our information from is also really important to think about. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it takes 2 minutes. Look it up yourself.
So just fact check some shit. Like if I watch something and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know this. I've gotten into the habit of like just, dog, we got Google in our pocket.
Uncle Google. Ask him.
We literally said on our last episode, we are lazy learners. We fail to do the extra. We fail to take that extra step to like make sure it's real. You know what I'm saying? And there's websites that help with that, like factchecker.ca and whatnot. And it's like they're taking a positive step in doing that. And I think social media is a big part of why misinformation is spread so much. Because it's so easy to spread your opinion on that, right? Or to retweet something, or to share something and whatnot. And would you say that's a big problem and a big reason why anti-maskers are a thing today?
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
100%. Where else would you breed stupidity?
Yeah, like for real.
Where else? Like, where else could you breed? Where else could a bunch of stupid people gather together and have the same thought about something?
Think about it. Like, think about homeboy Cletus, in the States, like living down south. You just kind of like out there mentally, right? But he's like, you know what? I'm painting a real specific picture here, but like, but he's like, he's in his little community, and there's a bunch of people who think like him, right? Now this man's got a smartphone. You go on Instagram, you go on YouTube, and see, homeboy Billy Joe in like Georgia thinks the same way that I do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now they can chat to each other. Now they're doing these cross-country Trump rally, anti-mask things. Like he said, it breeds on social media.
It's the algorithms, man.
But real shit. Like, real, you saw the doc. We're talking about docs. It's ironic because we're talking about like watching something and then going off it. But we all saw, was it Social Dilemma?
Oof.
Social Dilemma, right?
That was a lot.
That talks exactly about it. Like the way the algorithm is set up, it just is meant to manipulate us. Yeah. So
I kind of question, like, people are like, oh, I learned so much. Like, everything we saw on there was not something that we didn't already know for the most part. Yeah. Like, there's a couple things where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like, that's interesting.
Facebook probably knows every single thing about me.
Probably.
Like, for me, I'm not really that outraged that these guys have all my information because that's the trade off for using their platforms.
Yeah.
For the
You know what I'm
convenience
saying?
of
That's
it.
the convenience of it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, you want to freaking like sabotage my Apple Music subscription? Like, well, all right, like, like what can really be done? Like it's a fake outrage. I feel like
This is my thing though, right? Like regarding the whole social media, like information collective. I think that there's a guy right now in the States, like some policymaker that's looking, he's been suing Facebook and these other big companies for a minute now. Because his argument is, all right, cool. I know that when I sign up for an app, no one's really agreeing when they sign up for Instagram that, okay, Instagram, I'm going to let you collect all this information on me that you can then sell to these advertisers. Yeah. So they create a profile on you. No one's really agreeing to that, but we understand, like you said, it's a trade-off. The problem is, he said, as of right now, there's no way that you can get that information. Like, you can't actually go to an Instagram or Facebook and say, can I, like, see the profile you guys have on me? You can't ask for it. You don't own it. You know what I mean? So the question, like, it begs, like, all right, why would someone want that information in the first place? Why would you want to know what information this company has on you? I think for one reason, so you can see how it's being shopped around, right? Imagine, like, we're just sitting in this room and this man over here just taking all the information and he goes down the street and sells it to the man next door. And now that man has a profile on us. You would think that's a little strange.
100%. Right?
So I think personally, I would love to have the ability to at least see the information that is being collected on me. Mm-hmm. The problem is, I know it's being collected, but I don't know what the information is. I just know that when I go to my Explore page, I see a bunch of dogs and I see a bunch of women. Because those are things that I'm like looking at. Yeah. So it's like,
I was signing up for an app like the other day, and I'm like, let me just see like the terms and conditions.
Oh, you actually read through them?
Yeah, I actually like skimmed through it just to see like what kind of data they were getting from me. And I was kind of mind blown. Like, they're really trying to get all my information.
Yeah.
Like the people I message, the things I like, you know, my email, like, you know, where I live, where I went to school, all this shit. Like, and in this day and age right now, data is worth everything.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these big corporations, we don't live in the television industrial complex anymore. You know, people used to just sit there and watch their favorite show. You put on an ad, you know, everybody's going to see it.
Yeah.
It's not like that no more. It's like all these companies have all this information and they literally target exactly who they want to.
They can get very specific.
I played around with the Facebook ads and all that shit. I'm like, yo,
it's scary though.
This shit's actually
very
crazy.
Specific. This target race, everything.
This is the same time. This is the same things that happen. Where like we'll be talking about a product, it'll pop up on our phone 10 seconds later. Yeah. In a sense, that's scary. I think my biggest issue with data collection and whatnot is like the possibility of security threats. So when you talk about things like TikTok, how they had that whole fiasco, I think it was with China, right? So I'm always thinking, okay, what's the worst that could happen under
worst
this
case
situation?
scenario?
Exactly. China gets the data. They can manipulate that or use anything with that, right? Yeah. So just from a security standpoint, that's why I'm so just on edge with data collection and data information. And even just like are our phones really spying on us?
Oh, hell yeah.
Definitely.
You know
but
definitely.
I was at this guy's crib. I asked him for the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi screen pops up.
Yeah.
The one that, like, you know, suggested networks.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, this is...
It absolutely is.
It's crazy.
Too much.
Like, when people see, and tying it back to the whole COVID thing, when people are like, you don't want a vaccine because they're going to put a chip in there and they're going to track you. I'm like, bro, they've been tracking you. You have a phone in your pocket. Like, what are we talking about? And first off, they don't give a fuck about you because you're working at Walmart. Like, what are you talking to me about being tracked? Like, you're not doing nothing. Like, if anything, they're just trying to figure out how they can manipulate you. That's really
simple.
The government's always watching, you know?
Yeah.
They watching. But, like, my life's not that interesting.
It's Big Brother, man.
big brother.
It really is.
Good shit, man.
Man,
it's crazy.
And all this shit, man. It's...
Yeah.
Yo, I heard they're like, it's possible to sell that.
You're saying
Like there's a whole market where they sell that.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Oh yeah.
like on the black market or something like that.
I don't know what the market was called, but apparently like our SIN number is getting traded multiple times.
Oh,
I don't know the validity behind that.
How you know? How you think the scammers are getting paid, man? They're using our SIN. They're using our bank. They're doing all of this shit.
Everything they can.
Everything.
Yeah. No, I'm not even talking about that. I mean like our actual like
Information
is getting traded. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
there's a business for everything, man.
I mean, you have to think about it, right? Like, if everyone in the world's information is being collected, that includes, people in power, celebrities, all these types of people. If you decide, oh, okay, I'm going to collect information on, let's say you collect information on Jay-Z, right? He's barely on social media, but you can still track all his stuff through his phone. Imagine what you would do or how damaging it would be if you found out he was a Republican, not a Democrat. And just something as little as that, just as a political opinion. When you think about how that sways public opinion at that point, you know what I mean? Someone that's openly saying, vote this way, but really I'm voting for my particular interests, which are aligned with being a Republican, right? So that's why I take a lot of these things with a grain of salt, because especially when it comes to celebrity, like you can't fully trust everything that these people say, because at the end of the day, they're not in the same position that we are currently.
Bro, what are your thoughts on like celebrities getting into politics, man? We just seen that video the other day of Lil Pump getting into the freaking rally with Trump. It's like
Lil Pimp.
So
billions and billions of
streets. What are you doing here, bro? Like,
so, I mean, Lil Pump going to that, or Lil Pimp is
shout out to Trump, man.
Yeah.
Shit,
so I mean, for me, that was really just him collecting a bag, to be honest with you. I feel like he collected a bag from that. Still think it's whack as hell. But
I never listened to Lil
Pump. I don't listen to him, so it's like you don't it's not so on my back. When I think about a lot of celebrities getting involved with it, like most obvious one comes to mind is Kanye, right? I was literally on once again Clubhouse. I was in a chat today. The title was it was Kanye's our best option. Change my mind, right? So this guy created a chat room, black dude. He's like, change my mind. Like, prove to me why Kanye's not our best option. And there was a lot of people who agree with him, a lot of people who disagreed. And I've been listening to Kanye since I was like 9 years old, bro. Probably one of the only artists I've listened to for that long.
Yeah,
I think we all have.
And I've watched him. He's probably the only artist, to be honest with you, that like I think has probably had the most human experience in celebrity view, in the sense that like I've actually watched him change. You know what I mean? Like a lot of celebrities like curate how they act. Biggest instance when he made 808s, that was like right after
his mom died.
Mom passed, right? Like it's everything. Every album means something in relative to his life.
Very transparent. Yeah.
Very transparent. Doesn't mean you have to agree with his views, whatever, right? Do I want to see Kanye president? Fuck no, I don't. But what I believe is that the changes that he's arguing for, that he wants to make, he doesn't need to be president in order to do that, right? Like he already created like the schooling system that he's donated to. He's created like a whole community in Wyoming, whatever that is. It's like a lot of these celebrities, they actually don't need politics in order to make a certain level of change that they want to. The problem is like when you get into politics, you're almost limited to a certain extent for certain things that you want to do, because there's too many invested interests.
Yeah.
There's too many hands in the pot. Like people investing, like the fact that there's like 15 most powerful people on the earth are the ones that are kind of like in control of everything.
Pulling the strings.
Crazy, yeah.
Like that's actually a wild thought when you think about it. There's like over 7 billion people in the world, and there's like
families.
There's a group that you could put in this room that like literally pull the strings on everything.
So doesn't that, and what we were saying about the yesterday's episode, doesn't that make democracy a myth in a sense?
You know what? I think the systems that we have in place right now are flawed, right? I mean, even this whole, I agree with you to a certain extent. Like, yeah, I think the ideal society, it needs to be a mix of a lot of these systems that we have in place. People shit on socialism, but it's like, yo, there's a time and place when that absolutely works, right? The reason why people in the States can't get behind this idea of like universal health care is because, as you said before, it's too much me before we. This idea that, okay, if I pay a little bit more money in taxes, the people below me are going to be better off, right? But the people who are at the bottom, they can't get behind that idea because they're thinking, okay, if I have $10,000, now I'm going to be paying $4,000 in taxes versus $2,000 if I go with the Republicans. You know what I mean? But it benefits everyone in the long term if you just pay a little bit more. And the reason they can't get behind it is because there's this mentality and this idea, specifically in the States, that everyone will get rich one day. The American dream.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
It's the American dream. It's made to make people think that everyone will get to this point when we've seen it's not the case. You can't get there. And the problem with this idea, sorry I'm going on a rant, but like this the problem with this idea that, you know, when people say, all right, I wish Kanye would just donate this money to like this community or blah, blah, blah. Or like certain, they want a celebrity to fix their problems who just has an abundance of wealth.
They're not obligated to.
They're not obligated to. But two, you never want your problems to be solved by one individual who is not a political entity.
Yeah.
Because then that creates like a weird, dicey moral dilemma, right? Like they kind of own your whole situation, but they're not in the government. The government are the people that are supposed to create the system that works for you. And that's the key word. They're supposed to work for you. But right now, it seems like the other way around. We're being manipulated by them. We're being given this illusion that they work for us, but it's not really the case. It's messed up.
Well, the initial premise of a democracy is a system for the people, by the people.
Exactly.
Right now, today's day and age, is a system that's essentially for the politicians, for the people in power to benefit themselves, right? So it's tricky. But I do agree that there has to be a mix of certain political elements to have like the ideal society. Yeah. Socialism obviously has its benefits. I'm a big, supporter of it because, we're in Canada. We have those type of principles. But I think it's important to have like a complete mix.
And I mean, you see the difference. Like, it's one thing for me to see it on TV, right? But when I was talking to these Americans today about the whole voting thing, they're straight up getting like voter suppression all the time. Like, for them, it's normalized. But I'm like, nah, you guys are actually being suppressed. Because when I had to vote, literally, I got a letter in the mail. I didn't have to register to vote.
Yeah, it's facts.
I was registered already. I got a letter in the mail. It said, hey, you're registered to vote. The place where you're going to vote is like maximum 10 minutes away. It was across the street. I literally just had to walk across the street to like a nursing home and go vote. In the States, you see people lining up for hours. Voting day is not even a holiday. They don't give you time off. They don't give you time. Like, you can't leave X amount of hours in the day to go vote, which creates a problem. I could do that here. We could all do that. This idea that when I go to vote here, I vote for the prime minister, who I'm going to like want to be prime minister, and I vote for like my local MP. That's it. When you go to the States, you're not just voting for your president. You're voting for like 24 other positions. And most people are not politically knowledgeable to know like, oh, I should vote for this person. I should vote for this person, which means you're not voting in your best interest, which means you're getting fucked over in the long run. Right. And they don't teach any of these things.
And it's usually people that are in the higher communities of higher education that are well equipped and can understand the nuances within that, right?
Absolutely.
And so you talked about this on the other episode, man. This is so convenient.
And that's why I say like democracy really is a myth, because the people that understand voting and go and vote and it's accessible for them, the majority of them are Republicans. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that idea of democracy sounds great in theory, but then you look at it in America, it's not practiced.
Not at all.
It's not practiced.
Everything sounds great in theory, bro.
Absolutely. But like you look at Canada, it's like, it's practiced here. It's more accessible. Yeah. Even sometimes you can argue that like it's a little flawed. I think it's flawed everywhere. But man, America is a whole mess right now.
It's weird looking at America, because you're like, how would I describe America? America is that man that wears a Gucci belt with every outfit. That doesn't and it doesn't match. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
They're doing too much.
yeah, like taking every opportunity to let you know, like, I got it. But it's like, do you really though?
They're the same people that are living with their mom in the basement, real. But they got the Gucci belt.
They got the Gucci belt.
Knock on the
Gucci
door, mom,
sneakers.
it's me. Let me in.
They got the Gucci belt, but like there's toilet paper stuck to your shoe right now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like what's really good?
And I want to talk about, like, you went back to the American dream.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like, this theory that you can come to America and have this mobility to go from, like, rags to riches to boom is, like, that's the idea. Everybody wants to hit that gold mine and be that thing. But then you look at America right now, it's like, shit. Mexicans try to come here. They get split apart from their families, sent home. Black people have been here for 400 years. Still haven't even leveled the playing field.
Yeah.
You know, Chinese virus comes, right? As Trump would say, you know, there's discrimination there. It's like the American dream is like.
But you want to know how they justify that? Because one case out of every million cases, there's one that makes it out.
Yeah.
LeBron.
And that's the one
Jay-Z.
case that you see sensationalized everywhere.
Yeah.
And that to me is just like, like as an athlete, I like to compare a lot of like these situations to like my experiences. Like as an athlete, you know, you often hear about in basketball, the basketball community, like what's the chances of you making it to the league? What's the chances of you going to college? What's the chances of you going D1? And so those chances, I think that are they're undervalued and they kind of like get slipped under the rug. Cause like that American dream, like what's the chances of getting that dream?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To me, I compare that to like going to the league. Like what's the chances? But it's sensationalized all the time when you like you can't, there's no way of measuring that. You know what I'm saying? It's tough.
It's really tough. And I think to your point, it's the reason why the American dream is flawed is because the starting point was never the same for everyone. You know, like speaking from my experience as a black person, it's like you're like, okay, we're all going to run the 100-meter race, but Zamora, you're going to start 10 meters back. And then I'm also going to chop off your right foot. Like that's kind of like what the experience is like. And I actually just pulled something up that I read yesterday, right? This is to actually like explain how crazy the American experience is. But basically, it said, this book that my boy was reading, it said, this was what the United States was for longer than it was not. It is a measure of how long enslavement lasted in the United States, that the year 2022 marks the first year that the United States will have been an independent nation for as long as slavery lasted on its soil. 2022 will be the first year that will be independent as long as it was a slave country.
That's not even that long. Wow.
It's not that long.
Damn shame.
Right? So then when you talk to certain people about the American dream, they say, hey, pull up your bootstraps, all this type of stuff. It's like, bro, we don't have the same starting point. Chris Rock had this video go around recently that's pretty viral. He's like, he said, I hate civil rights movies with a passion. And they're looking at him like, why? And he's like, because they romanticize it. They make it palpable for people.
Exactly, yeah.
He's like, they don't talk. He said it's his mother, Chris Rock's mother, when she was growing up, she couldn't go to the dentist to get her teeth taken care of. She had to go to the vet. That's his mom. That's one person removed.
One generation.
That's one person removed, right? You talk to like, because we live in Canada, I have a lot of friends from a diverse background, right? I know that I could not go to one of my Italian friends and say, yo, my mom like actually went through this type of thing, and they would be able to get the same experience. You know what I mean? Like their family might have gone through some sort of struggle for sure, but there's no way they're going through the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's like these things are way too new for people. They're too recent.
Yeah.
And it's not the same for a lot of other people.
No, it's like, you know, it comes down to that skill of, was it empathy? Being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You know what I'm saying? I think with the thing with black people is we can all relate to having a similar struggle. And then black people, I find black people the most open people. They welcome Asian people, brown people, you know, Arab people. They're always like accepting of everyone because the struggles are, the nuance of the struggles are eerily similar,
Yeah.
But when you're trying to explain these struggles to people who, never had to want for nothing, it's like it falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how do you relate that? You know?
Yeah.
How do you relate these struggles to this person who, may have had a silver spoon? And some people, they try their best to understand that, but a lot of people, it's like, can't wrap their head around it.
Yeah, I think it's also a comfort thing too. Like, as black men in this room, and you go to different situations, you kind of seeking in the room to find out, like, oh, where's the other black guy in here? So like, you kind of like want that sense of relatability, and that's where, like, wherever you go. You being in Edmonton, I think you probably experience that a lot too.
Absolutely.
Being the sole black person in a room, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, because
We've all been there.
Yeah, you basically become like this ambassador. You know what I mean? You become like this ambassador for all black people.
Yeah.
You didn't ask for this role, but you understand as a black person, it's like, okay, I'm the only person in this room.
Yeah.
I should probably like at my best, because then if I don't, they're not bringing another black person into this room.
100%.
You know what I mean? We're always thinking about these things. So, this was something we talked about on my podcast just today, actually, and it was when during COVID, like the whole crazy thing about this race relation stuff is, to me, it upset me how the world had to get like softened up in order for people in general to start talking about some of these issues. Like, it took a global pandemic for people to then see, it's crazy to say this, but a global pandemic happened, and then George Floyd happened, and to us as minorities, it's like,
this has been happening.
It was still heartbreaking, but it's been happening. Like, we've seen this before, but no one had any distractions. So they saw it and they're like, oh my God, like this is real. And I remember, no word of lie, you guys might have had it, like beginning of COVID when this stuff was going down, I had like white people reach out to me to have conversations around this. And some of it I could tell was, oh, you're just talking to me to like clear your own conscience. Like you don't know, you don't really know me. You just here to clear your own conscience. And there was other people who I'm still having conversations with because it genuinely changed and affected them, right? But it's this weird thing that I don't think, unfortunately, like white people have had to come to terms with. I think maybe the next generation they might start realizing it. I can't fully see it yet. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's a hard conversation. Like, I recognize it's a hard conversation for them to even want to have with me.
Because for them, it's like, if we're talking about the struggles of black people and you say that, white people are beneficiaries of this oppression and the scales being lopsided, it almost takes away from, it might feel like you're taking away from their struggle.
They feel like it's being taken away from them. Yeah.
Which is not the case, which is not, we're not here to take away from whatever you have been through as an individual.
Yeah.
We're just speaking on our experiences and saying how the experience that black people have are not unique to us. It's a universal thing.
Yeah.
And not just in Canada, not just in America, black people around the world. The fact of the matter is, the color of your skin dictates your experiences in life.
Absolutely.
Which is a very fucked up way to go through society.
Yeah.
Think about that. If you and me walk in a room and there's two white people in there and they walked into the room first, they're not greeted the same way we are.
Yeah, absolutely not.
The first impressions that they get is not the same as ours. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the world operates like this. This is the reality. It's a harsh reality.
It's funny. Go on.
I was going to say, it's also a shame how you also pointed out how being the only black person in the room, you're actually a representation for everyone else after you.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts a strain on us. So it's like, okay, we got to act on our best behavior.
Yeah.
If you don't, no one else is going to come through that room. But I want to touch on your point about how sometimes white people may feel like it affects them, like their oppression is being taken away, or like, you know what I'm trying to say? So a good example of that is the All Lives Matter versus the Black Lives Matter. We're not saying that all lives don't matter. We're simply highlighting our struggles, and that was something that was so hard for people to fathom during this. And it still is. Yeah, it still is.
I think it's crazy, to be honest with you.
It's insane. Yeah,
like it's a conversation that I know is unwinnable. because
That's sad.
It's
a
unwinnable
bad
because
shame, bro.
it should be super straightforward, but for whatever reason, it's really not. You know what I mean? And
That's sad.
I like, you know, I've recognized after having conversations with, like, I've always had white friends. Like, it's not something I've shied away from, whatever, because it's not in my nature to.
I love white people.
But what I've realized is that during this time, I just realized that a lot of the white people that I'm in contact with, they mean well. They actually just don't know how to like preface the things they want to say, because it's really uncomfortable for them too, which I fully understand. Right? Like I can recognize that because I have the empathy level to do it, but it's also like I shouldn't be the one to have to educate you on all these things. And then I'm realizing, like, there's so much unlearning that they have to do.
It's unlearning, not learning.
Yeah, it's a lot of unlearning that it actually shakes their whole world and everything they knew. You know, like one of my boys was having a conversation with me about slavery, right? One of my white boys, and I'm just like, dude, like everything that we were taught in school about slavery is like not how it went down. You know what I mean? And he's like, that blows people's minds, because then they realize that this narrative that they've always been told about black people is not really the case.
Crazy. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on where you see these race relations heading after even COVID and after 2020. Like where do you see society heading towards in the terms of like dealing with racism, dealing with Black Lives Matter, and even dealing with COVID? I'll throw that in there for you guys. It's a big question. You guys.
I don't know, man. It's an uphill battle. I think racism is something I don't think racism itself will ever actually go away, because on a micro level, there's so much unlearning that needs to be done. There's so much education that needs to be, education needs to be taken into our own hands individually. I think as a society, we rely too much on people to tell us how things went down, how people to tell us how things should be, how people tell us how we should, how we should carry ourselves, as opposed to taking accountability for our own learning and saying, yo, this narrative might be questionable. Let me take it upon myself to dissect it and really get down to the bottom of this. Like, not enough people take accountability for their own individual learning. Yeah. And until that accountability comes into play, I think we'll be having the race conversation for a very, very long time. Because like you said, some people just want to clear the conscience. Some people, it's very performative. It takes the individual to say, okay, let me really understand how how this shit went down. It's really on me.
It's accountability in a sense.
Yeah, accountability. Yeah. It always comes down to accountability.
It's crazy.
As creators, I think, you said you're a filmmaker also. It's like, I think for us, it's important for us to be producers of content that makes us think about this shit. You know what I'm saying? I think there's so much to consume in the world that's mindless and just garbage, that as producers and people that have been through these struggles, I think it's our job and our duty to tell the stories that people may watch TV and be like, oh, that's just television. No. It's just real life. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? As creators of that content, we have to be the ones to continue pushing that conversation. And it could be in subtle ways. It could be subconsciously. Art is like, there's no barriers to it, So we have to use that art to kind of continue to push that conversation forward.
That's big, man. Because, like, example of that, do you guys hear of that show, Watchmen?
I've heard of that show.
The movie. There was a movie, and then they made a show.
Was it the superhero?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just, ironically, it's like this society where there's superheroes and there's some villains, and like all the cops some of the cops look like superheroes because they all have like masks and different things, but they do that to protect their identity, right? But most of them are good. But the problem is, like, when the show starts, the show is actually centered around black issues, because it starts off in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? And if you guys know what happened in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And I remember when the show came out, it was like last year, when people were talking online about, oh, like this actually, like they just depicted it in their own way, what actually happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Because it's on HBO, it's super violent. So they showed what happened. And people were like, wow, this is crazy. And then people were saying, yeah, this actually happened. This is them showing you what actually happened.
That's crazy.
People
That's
were
amazing.
like, people were like, they couldn't believe this actually happened. And we're like, no, like this has been a thing. We always knew this. So you bring up a really big point about how you have that responsibility as someone who creates art to create content that makes people think.
I think as consumers too, we have to put the onus on them and us ourselves included when consuming conscious content, because as consumers, sometimes you don't always want to consume that. And I know sometimes people choose to be ignorant and choose to not want to be woke or whatever term you want to use. And I think that's important to really expand your horizons in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Learning new information that's going to make you think, just what you're saying. So as much as the responsibility is placed on creators of content like that, as consumers, you got to digest what's good for you.
Yeah.
And will make you think outside the box. So
I'm at a point in my life where, you know, if it doesn't make me really question, think, or inspire me, I just don't have time for it. You know,
That's
whether
what's
it's
up.
music, whether it's podcasts,
That's
whether
big.
it's television, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, all you have is your mindfulness.
Yeah.
You know, and everything starts with your brain. Anything you create starts with your ideas. You know, so that space has to be nurtured. It can't be neglected. You know,
Absolutely.
so you have to kind of just take, as a consumer, you have to take that upon yourself, and then,
I think just to wrap up for me is I think I honestly don't know like where things are gonna go next year, and the main reason I feel this way is because even though we don't live in the States, I honestly do feel a lot of uncertainty around this election because what I'm seeing is I've always known as a black person that racism is there, whether it's overt or, you know, subtle, because we've all faced it. But what I've seen since Trump has become president, in like the last year and a half especially, is just that outright like aggressiveness of it. And that is becoming a norm. Like people are starting to think like this is
okay.
You know what I mean? So I'd like to think that even if he did become president again, there'd be a bigger side of people that are like, we need to actually figure out how we squash this, you know? Because if we just have to live with this man being our president, we're not going to live with all the other, you know, crap that comes along with it. But that's something I am concerned about. Because it's weird. Like, we live in Canada, and you see, I've seen people wear MAGA hats here.
I seen a black guy wearing a MAGA hat
Yeah.
last time.
And I was like,
we're intertwined with them a lot in many ways.
So it was like, that's my main thing. Yeah. But aside from that, I think it's important that, you know, we have discussions like this. Because one thing I've always lived by is you never know who's watching, right? You never know. And it's like, whether it's someone that you like, you don't like, if they're tuning in, they're gaining some sort of information. And that's probably the most important part.
Well, honestly, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Definitely got to have you on again. This is very insightful
Thank you,
not only us, but I'm pretty sure those who are listening. So
let them know where they can find your podcast, man.
Yeah. My podcast, We Need to Talk TV, WNTT.tv. And then you can follow me at Topboy, TOPB0Y. That's it.
what's up? On that note,
You guys know what it is. Just like that.
yo.